just to let you know, previously there was a 4-hour exam. You're the first people, you are the guinea pigs, and you're going to be trying the 3-hour 15 exam for the first time. So it's actually in your favor that you have this given to you in advance. Previously, you had to read a lot of information on the day of the exam. You don't have to do that anymore. So the aim of the pre-scene is to give you an understanding of the industry. So you've got to understand the industry, how it operates, and the key elements within that industry. So important thing is, I'm sure you all know that the pre-scene case study is about the airline industry, and it's about the budget airline industry. It is a fictitious company, and it is a fictitious country, but you must consider that it's very similar to an EasyJet you might have in the UK, but similar to many budget airlines around the world. I don't know what is coming up in the exam, and nobody knows what is coming up in the exam. And quite often the pre-scene is written in such a way that it's difficult to identify what they're going to ask in the real exam. But there might be a few clues in there and a few possibilities. So I'll try to help you along the way. With the ACCA exam, there are multiple versions of the exam. So even if I say, hey, this is a great tip, it might be in a morning session, but not be in an afternoon session. So SBL is a very difficult thing to tip because there are multiple versions of the same examination, depending on when you sit the exam. I want to tell you first of all about myself. If you want to contact me after the session, just scan this QR code and it's got all my details on there. I've been teaching SBL since it started, and I've been teaching ACCA since 1992. I was working for Kaplan for the last 5 years, and I've been living in Southeast Asia working for Kaplan, teaching on ACCA, but now I'm setting up my own company and I'm going freelance. So I'm literally just set up my company a couple of weeks ago just to provide lectures and support for students, course and revision. So if you want to get in touch, or if you know anybody that needs help, this is my contact form. I'm trying to build my profile, so I would appreciate it if you follow me on LinkedIn and follow me on Twitter. So Twitter, nobody's following me on Twitter, right? Nobody loves me on Twitter. So if you can follow me on those two media, that would massively help me to increase my profile. So appreciate it if you can do that. So I just want to go through quickly some of the changes in the examination, and you may not be familiar with them all. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of the changes in the examination. So first of all, the exam duration, I'm sure you know, it's reduced. It used to be 4 hours. Now it is 3 hours, 15 minutes, 3 hours, 15 minutes. So although it seems like less time, but you've got the pre-scene, so actually it should give you more time in the exam. It should be a net positive for the students in the examination. So there are exhibits, but the number of exhibits, you're not going to get pages and pages of exhibits. In the pilot papers, it was just like 4 or 5 pages of information, quite quick and easy to read. So you're not going to get another big volume of data. So don't worry about having massive more to read on the day of the exam. If the pilot papers and the sample papers are anything to go by, it was just maybe 4 or 5 pages and a few extra exhibits. So you're not going to be expecting a big 12 pages of exhibits on the day of the exam. It just will be a limited number, which is good for you again. It's quicker and easier to read and assimilate that information. So there's only going to be 3 compulsory questions in the exam. Previously, exams, they had like maybe 4 or 5 questions. So there's only going to be 3 questions which will have multiple parts in the exam. So that's a change which was not there before. Next thing is about professional marks. We know there are 5 professional marks. I'm sure if you've been studying and working hard now, you know all about the professional marks. There's still going to be 20 professional marks in the exam, but each one will only be tested once. So in previous exams, you'd have evaluation as a professional mark used multiple times in the examination. That won't happen. It will just be, there'll be one evaluation. There'll be one skepticism. There'll be one commercial awareness. The other difference is in this exam, previously the professional marks were 2 professional marks or 3 professional marks. Now for the exam, the professional marks are all going to be 4 professional marks. So it's all going to be 4 professional marks in the examination. So what you've got to look for is make sure that you are aware of the professional marks, and there's going to be no 2 or 3 professional marks in the examination. So there's been a bit of change in the format. In previous examinations, the format was very one-word processing document where you wrote all your answers in. There's going to be a slight change in format where each task will have its own area, a separate area where you're going to write the exam. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, when I first saw this, I was like, what do they really mean? Each question has got an area where you can either write a word processing answer, an Excel answer, or a spreadsheet answer. I'm just going to add a few more people in to the call. So before the exam, it's very important that you work on the practice platform. So go and have a look at the sample examination in the practice platform. That sample examination has got the format. So basically for task 1, you will have one word processor. You click on the button, it will take you to task 2. You'll have a separate word processor in task 2. So if you've done SBL before, the response area is slightly different. It's not massively different for each. So let's get right into it. So I'm looking at the first page, and we know it is a budget airline industry. A budget airline industry. So we know that strategy is like a no-frills strategy, which means we're going to be operating at low prices. So we're going to be looking at this. It's a low price strategy. Now, low price normally, how do you make money on a low price strategy? You only make money on a low price strategy if you can achieve high volumes. So what you need to have is high volumes in this strategy. So any low cost business, especially in a budget airline business, they've got to have a massive volume to make money. So it's relatively low margin, but high volume is where they make money. So they're currently operating 1,000 different routes to 30 countries, and their head office is based in this fictional town. So I just had an idea when they're talking about political stability, it's joined a free trade bloc. There may be a potential, and again, I'm not here to do question spotting for you, but if they ask a question about pastel, you've got some ideas there about pastel. The other sort of question that does come up sometimes in the examination, which students find quite difficult, is the strategic diamond, Porter's strategic diamond, which looks at the country factors, country features, which help to support the country features. So I just thought about when I read this paragraph, my first thought was, are they trying to prepare you for like a pastel type question? Or there's an outside possibility that they will ask you about strategic diamond. And the strategic diamond really would be about factors within a country that help to support the industries in that country. So the idea of this airline is they are a point-to-point airline and they are no frills. So I think we're all very familiar. We've probably all traveled on some kind of budget airline, and we know how it works. I think most people understand how it works. There's a great deal of automation going on, and they're using technology really well in this industry, which also might be a potential issue in the future. So as I'm reading through about this, there's a couple of things here which I want to highlight about on the first page. The other possibility when we're looking at doing analysis of the industry is we've got a model which we use, which is called Porter's 5 Forces. So Porter's 5 Forces is a model where we talk about suppliers, customers, competitive rivalry. So if we're looking at Porter's 5 Forces, one important area is the bargaining power of the suppliers, the bargaining power of suppliers. So this question talks about, as a budget airline, we do rely heavily on suppliers. And the key factor for you to understand in terms of the industry, in terms of industry analysis, a key factor for you to understand is that there are very few airline aircraft manufacturers in the world. So it's really like a limited number of manufacturers in the world. So it's not like you've got a wide choice of potential suppliers. So that's a kind of industry factor you've got to take into account. If they ask a question about country factors, you may also talk about that suppliers as being a related and supporting industry in terms of the strategic diamond. Key factor we've got to take into account in any industry is the Pestel factors and social trends. Well, we've got a couple of trends here in this first page, and we're looking in particular about tourism, global trade. All these things are net positive opportunities for airlines. So to understand the market, there's been a big growth in tourism. There's been a big growth in global trade. All these are positive factors for the airline. Okay. We are looking at different types of customers, and it talks about the industry as a whole. So we have got leisure passengers and business passengers. So why do we try to target business passengers on an airline business? For business passengers, basically it's all about space. There's a limited amount of space on a plane, So if you've got, the more space you take up, the more you're going to get charged on an aeroplane. So if you're a first class customer, you're going to take up quite a lot of space. Therefore, you're going to get charged more money. So a lot of airlines, that's really where they make their money for a lot of airlines, especially those longer haul airlines, is on the business class passengers. That's really the money-making part of the airline. So just take that into account. Budget airlines, what you've got to have is you've got to have a full flight. You've got to hit about 90-95% full to start making real money on the flight. If you've got half full flight, you're not really making much money at all on that budget airline flight. If you've got all your business class and first class passengers in, but the economy is a bit empty, you can still make money. So this is a characteristic of the industry. But for our industry, for this company we're looking at, is a budget airline. Okay, so we are not really, business passengers generally don't fly on budget airlines. Let me just have a look. If there's any questions, just type your question as you go. So that's page 1. Anybody got any questions about page 1? No, we're good? Okay, so let's try to move on to page 2. Okay. So when you look at the airline business, when we're talking about characteristics of the airline business, we have this phenomenon called high operational gearing. So what airlines have got is they've got very high fixed costs. That's what high operational gearing means. It's nothing to do with the debt over equity. It's to do with the fixed costs. So when you've got an airline which has got high fixed costs, it's very important you have a lot of contribution to those fixed costs going forward. So the characteristic of an industry we're looking at is going to be one where they have very high fixed costs. And especially if you're doing international airlines, you've got the cost of the plane, you've got all the other ancillary costs going on. If the plane's empty, you've still got to pay those costs. That's what high operational gearing means, and that's a big feature of all airline industries, and it particularly affects the larger airlines as well, but it affects all industries. So that's something that I want to consider as an industry feature. If you've got a small aircraft fleet, which is mentioned a couple of times in the case, it's good for a number of reasons. Number one, maintenance. So if you've got a smaller aircraft fleet where all the aircraft are the same, it's easier and cheaper to maintain your aircraft fleet if you've got a small aircraft fleet. Also, when you're buying the aircraft, you've also got a bulk buying power. So you've got higher bargaining power if you're buying multiple versions of the same airline. The regional airline is so question here is coming from Ali. What about suppliers? Yeah, so suppliers can be when we look at Fortified Forces for suppliers, suppliers can be people as well as physical assets and materials. So suppliers, an airline, of course, people, pilots are going to be a supplier in the airline industry as well. Yeah, so yeah, definitely it can be human, it can be physical as well. So regional airlines is more of a focused strategy. You kind of concentrate on a narrower market and try to dominate that market. So when we've got an airline system, especially the full service carriers, remember the full service carriers are particularly dependent on business class customers and having first class customers. That's always going to be a problem in a recession. So in a recession, what happens in a recession? If there's a recession in the market, people tend to downgrade. They tend to stop flying the long haul airlines and they're going to start flying on the cheaper airlines. So when you've got a full service airline, the industry characteristic you've got to look for is very susceptible to recession. For a low cost carrier, they fly from smaller airports. Smaller airports could be an advantage for some customers, more convenient for some customers. They've got smaller aircraft fleets, smaller aircraft, so they're generally flying smaller planes. Everything extra has to be paid for. The thing about the customer in these markets is customers are very price sensitive in this market. So it means if the price goes up too much, customers do a lot of searching to try and find the best deal in the market. So low cost airline, especially in this one, there's a lot of competition in this case. The company they're talking about in this case, there are high levels of competition in this market. So you've got to be careful when you've got intense competition. What always happens when you've got intense competition, it tends to force down your prices and forces down your margin. We've got charter airlines. What I thought about there for charter airlines, when would you use a charter airline? The airline may have spare capacity in the quiet season, but they've still got the airline, right? They've still, especially for this company, they've already paid for the plane. So the plane's sitting there empty. So the charter airline is a very good way in low season to use your assets, to make better use of your assets, especially for this company because they bought most of their planes. So the charter airline is a way to make money in the quiet season. In the peak season, you would not really tend to offer these services because all your aircraft are being used at the same time. But it could be a way to make money in the quiet season. Cargo is a way to increase your profit. Remember, for the budget airline, key feature of the industry in terms of budget airline, the planes tend to be smaller, so they don't carry as much cargo. For the full service airline, they're much bigger, they're much more likely to carry cargo as well. Cargo is a way to make money and make more margin on the fly. So a lot of people, Sandra, that's not correct. So Sandra said suppliers are aircraft manufacturing fuel, not employees. Employees are also a supplier. When you talk about suppliers, suppliers are the inputs to the company. So employees can be in terms of bargaining power of suppliers, people are the inputs to a company. So they would count under suppliers, if we're talking about employees. So people got a bit confused about what is the difference between point-to-point and the hub and spoke. The point-to-point, I think it's pretty obvious what that means. What is very common in some countries, especially in the US, is they have a hub. So if you are in American Airlines in the US, the hub is in Dallas. So all planes will tend to fly via Dallas, right? So everything goes via Dallas and then goes on to somewhere else. What is the benefit? What is the benefit of using this hub and spoke? Does anybody know any benefit? If you want to put in the group chat, has anybody got any benefit? What is the benefit of having hub and spoke? It doesn't save time. It doesn't really save time. It actually is. The passengers might not like it. It might save costs. Yeah, it might save costs. Why would it save costs? Yes, you tap onto a bigger, yeah, it's more efficient utilization. Thank you, Mill. Longer routes, yeah, thank you, Sandra. So what happens here is it gives you much more choice, right? It gives you much more choice. Um, it gives you much more choice of destinations. So it gives you much more choice, but it is slower. So if you're in America and you want to fly to San Francisco, you've got to go via Dallas. It's going to add 2 hours onto your journey, but it gives you more destinations. And when the airlines use that, they can use a larger plane to travel because all those passengers from different destinations are consolidating on one flight. So it's a very efficient way to use your aircraft, but the customers generally don't like it as much. So it's very good in terms of cost efficiency, fuel efficiency, larger planes, but it's not very good in terms of customer satisfaction. Customers generally prefer to go direct if they can. But if you're looking at cost efficiency, it's a very efficient way to move your people about because if you're flying from I don't know Georgia to San Francisco, everybody's flying to Dallas, and all those passengers can be consolidated on one big plane that can then go to San Francisco. So you can use your larger planes, more fuel efficient, and getting more volume of people on every flight. Hub and spoke is something that I don't know if they'll ask it because it's quite a technical question, but you might be asked to discuss briefly what are the advantages and disadvantages of hub and spoke in comparison point to point. It may be too technical question for the examination, but at least you have to they put it in there for a reason. They didn't have to put in this about hub and spoke, so they must have put it there for a reason. So there must be something, maybe a few marks going to ask about what the benefits are of the hub and spoke compared to point to point. Point to point, customers love it. The problem is with point to point is you might not always fill the aircraft because you might not have enough people to fill the aircraft. And remember, budget airlines are all about filling the aircraft full of people. So I've just got some statistics here, and nothing much on the numbers. We haven't got many numbers to play with on this. Safety is a big issue. And air traffic control, I just want to mention that in UK, they've had big issues in the UK, and most of the people who write the exam are from the UK, where the air traffic control can go on strike. So if that happens, basically all the aircraft have to stop flying. So it's just something that might be in your mind, strike action. Also, if we're looking at the UK market, there's been a big issue last year. I know some of you live in the UK. There's a big issue about baggage handlers not having enough people to deal with the baggage. So that was a staff shortage issue in the UK, caused a lot of customer dissatisfaction, customers very unhappy about doing it. Even in the UK now, there's some issues with flight delays. So it's something that is going to affect the customer service of an airline. It's a key industry feature. So a lot of the flight delays and ground issues cause a delay, but it's outside the control of the airline. So it's something that happens which is not in your control. Okay, so a few things here that I'm thinking about. And if you look at the case, as you read through the case, they keep on mentioning about environmental issues in the organization. So I just thought that in the pilot paper, mock exam on the ACCA practice platform, and again, I would strongly advise you go and look at that. They did mention they had a question on sustainability reporting. So throughout the case, they mentioned sustainability quite a few times and environmental issues. It might lead to a question potentially about integrated reporting. So in the past, it's been a very popular area, this question of integrated reporting, but it might just be more something about sustainability reporting, benefits, especially because customers seem to be interested in this. They also talk about cyber attacks here. They also talk about, yeah, Tia, are they the same thing? Are what the same thing? Sustainability reporting and integrated reporting, are they the same thing? The idea of integrated reporting will cover the environmental and sustainability issues, but it also covers other things as well, like social impact or a wider consideration of sustainability. So it covers things like machinery and people. So it covers other factors. So sustainability, if you look at it in a narrow sense, would look at the environmental impact. But integrated reporting looks at 6 different elements. Okay. ACCA, SBL exam, there's always a big thing about cybersecurity. In the pilot paper, there's also a question about cybersecurity issues. So make sure you're fully aware of different options in terms of cybersecurity. And a big part of the syllabus is risk. So we've got here a mention of crude oil. It's a big cost for the budget airline. The industry feature is going to be a big cost for the budget airline. So we've got oil price risk and we've got exchange rate risk. How can you manage, my question is to you, how can you manage oil price risk? Yeah, hedging, yeah. So look at your hedging. Hedging is a way to manage the oil price risk. So there may be some potential risk management. If they ask you about risk management, one of the things you want to talk about is, yeah, forward contract is a good one. Thank you. Yeah, forward contract is a great answer. So, you know, risk is a big part of the syllabus, and risk management is something that was very popular in previous exam. Risk management, risk controls also came in the pilot paper. So look out for this. Okay. We've also got, they keep mentioning this idea of sustainability. Governments are becoming environmentally sensitive. So it comes under the E of the PESTEL analysis, but also it's something that's ACCA. They are very big on sustainability and environmental reporting, right? They're really a big promoter of sustainability, environmental reporting, integrated reporting. So I think it's important that they will try to reflect that in some of their examinations. So they keep mentioning sustainability, green issues. So that might be indicating that there may be something that there in the future, the exam. There are environmental concerns. So I just put in here about integrated reporting, and something about EMS, environmental management system, also came up in one of the pilot papers for the new SBL examination. So they've got increased congestion at airports. I just thought, and competition. So there's big competition in the market. I was just thinking that why that might make the case for a hub. If we can have a hub where everybody's going there, it might be more efficient. I don't know. It could be a potential question in the exam. Next page, page 6, we looked at load factor. Is there a case? These are all about the ways in which KPIs in which we monitor the airline. In previous examinations in SBL, they've asked questions about analyze the performance, assess the performance of the company. So if you ask to assess the performance of the company, a good way to do that might be to use your balanced scorecard. And you've got quite a lot of factors here in relation to the balanced scorecard. So balanced scorecard is your financial performance, which is your profitability, sales, ROCE, but also you've got your customer satisfaction, your internal efficiency, which would be about how well you use the airline, and then your environmental efficiency maybe, and then you've got the innovation. How innovative are you? So if you get asked a question about performance, then what you're looking for, assess the performance of the airline. A balanced scorecard would be a really great way to do that. Okay, so next page, industry body. Whenever you've got an industry body, it's the L of PESTEL. You might have compliance issues. You might have to comply with the policies. You might have increased compliance costs. Big risks, because risk is a big part of the syllabus and a key factor in the industry. The major risks you're going to face are the airline safety and security risks, security, terrorism, bombing. So risk management is very important, and that's a key area of any airline. How do we manage the risks? How do we make sure we have excellent health and safety? What are the controls we put in place? So anything about, in previous exams, any question about risk, they ask you to maybe analyze and assess risks, but also how to manage risks. So make sure you've got some ideas about how to manage security risks on an airline, how to manage safety risks, things like training, having good policies and procedures, having good systems in place. So risk management is a key part of the syllabus. In terms of the background, they are core jets. It's all about targeting the low price sensitive customers in the market, and that's how they get their customers. Yeah, I'll come on to that, Abigail. Yeah, they did mention safety committee, but not a risk committee. Yeah, I'm going to come on to that. It could be something there. Yeah. So what might they ask about? And I will talk about it a bit later, but as a company, because they're a listed company, they're going to go for growth. Where are they going to grow to? So there could be something in terms of new market. In the future, they might want to expand outside their own country. Page 7. If you look at this market, it seems very competitive, highly competitive. So what I was thinking here is, if you look at this market, what do you need to do to reduce the competitive rivalry in the market? When you've got high rivalry, you've got pressure on your prices. You cannot increase your prices. So one thing I just thought about here is consolidation. There may be something in the exam which asks about Courgettes buys Brigade, or they buy LKK. So if you want to grow, because if you're a listed company, you're always under pressure to grow. One way you can grow is by acquisition, by acquiring your competitors. So just the possibility of something there. What's your future strategy for the organization? So there may be, in the material you get on the day of the exam, they might give you some information about a competitor airline, analyze whether this is a good acquisition. So if they ask you in the exam about acquisition, how would you approach a question which asks you to evaluate whether the acquisition is good? What tool would you use? Yeah, correct. Yeah, so suitability, acceptability, feasibility. Yeah, excellent. So you're all good on that. So it's a really good tool to use in the examination when you're using an acquisition. I put here about Diamond, Porter's Diamond. In Porter's Diamond, they always have the supporting industries, and here we've got, it could be a joint venture. There could be a joint venture, possibly. I mean, anything is possible, right? We don't know what's on the examination. It could be a joint venture. Some strategic partnership also could be there. Joint venture also could be asked about in the joint venture, what are the problems of dealing with an alliance and a joint venture? What potential problems are you going to have of dealing with an alliance and joint venture? So that's possible in the examination. I put about the value chain is quite strong in the company, and they've got very good partnerships with the airlines. So they've got very good supporting industries in this case. Yeah, pretty obvious. If you get more routes, you get more passengers. Nothing much it tells us. thing I highlight here is it's held by large institutional investors, so there's a pressure to grow in the organization. But if you're a private company, you don't have that same pressure to grow. But if you're a listed company, you've got to grow in the market. So how are you going to grow? New routes, new destinations, potentially overseas markets. So what are the issues of going into an overseas country, overseas markets? There's also potential issues of, could we have a joint venture? Could we acquire a competitor? These are all ways which you can grow. So anytime you're a listed company in any market, you're under pressure to show growth. Year on year growth is how you're going to grow your business. So that growth can come through more routes, more networks. It might come through hub and spoke, might be a way to grow the market, or it might come through an acquisition. But whenever you've got that, you've always got issues and risks and problems with acquisition. Only 1 out of 3 acquisitions is successful. Only 1 out of 3 is successful. I put it here, I just highlighted we've got a lot of routes. And quite often, when you're flying certain routes, not all routes will be profitable. You don't have profitable routes all the time. Okay, so just highlight that. Now, they own all their own aircraft outright. When you own all your own aircraft, you're going to have quite a high depreciation cost, right, compared to leasing aircraft. So that's something to consider. They've talked about, if you get asked a question about integrated reporting in terms of manufactured capital, it's one of the 6 capitals in integrated reporting. They're buying fuel-efficient aircraft. It's a very good investment in manufacturing capital, but also it's going to have a positive impact on natural capital. They're packing people into the planes, which is good. That's efficiency. You're maximizing your efficiency on the plane. Okay, so AI, artificial intelligence. Everybody's talking about AI at the moment. I think maybe an AI question. Why do I think an AI question for you? On the pilot paper, and I'll explain why that is relevant later on. But AI, there's been an article, ACCA article about AI. So far, no major question on it. But they did ask one in the pilot paper. So make sure you know about AI. On the pilot paper, they asked about AI ethical issues in relation to AI. That came up on the pilot paper for the SBL exam, the practice mock paper. So make sure you read the article about AI, artificial intelligence, right? The other thing I'm thinking about here is in previous exams, and a big part of your syllabus, they ask about big data. So here they talk about they've got the servers, right? They've got a lot of information. They've got a lot of information, but they're not really using that information effectively. So one question you might think about for the examination is how can they use big data? What are the ways in which we can use big data? And I've got that covered, right? So don't worry, I can give you some information on that. So big data. They'll be using it in terms of the predictive, prescriptive, descriptive way. So on your syllabus, applying those things, the question might focus in the exam about how can the airline make better use of big data? What are the ways in which big data, what are the benefits, advantages or use of big data? So they've got the data, but they're not saying how they're using it. How is AI different from app usage? AI is artificial intelligence is quite different. So app usage is people using an app. AI is all about making predictions, helping you to provide knowledge and expertise, which you would not normally have. The last part there, they just talk a little bit about, I just thought there's a part of your syllabus which is about talent management. They've got a lot of employees. So there may be something about making sure we have staff retention. AI and big data could work hand in hand, yes. AI, I'm not going to explain it in this lecture. I strongly recommend you read the article, but AI could potentially reduce staff. It could help in marketing. There's lots of technical article about AI written by the examiner. So rather than me spending half an hour explaining AI, strongly recommend go to the Education Hub, look at the ACCA articles. There's a big article about AI there. If there's going to be a question in the exam on AI, it will be based on the article. So that's what, whenever you see those articles in the exam, on the Education Hub, they're saying, hey, look, we might be asking this in the future. So read the article about AI. If you don't understand it, it's all there. It's all there for you, okay? All right. Yeah, it seems quite a good board structure. Not, like it's got all the elements there that you would kind of expect. No risk committee. They have a safety committee, but they have a risk committee. It could be significant. They've asked questions about benefits of having a separate risk committee. That's come before in the examination. So yeah, no sort of major obvious weaknesses that I can see here. They've kind of got the good structure. They've got a non-executive chairman. They've got NEDs. There's nothing majorly wrong. No, the risk committee is not normally compulsory under the code of governance. It's normally an optional one. So I can't see anything there. Yeah. So risks. One thing I think, again, they mentioned it a couple of times, and it is a major industry factor. You want to make sure that your cybersecurity is up and running, and you've got good cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is quite an important part of the syllabus. So make sure you're aware of the ways in which they can enhance or use the cybersecurity, especially a big factor which is common in the airline industry is if you've got a cyber attack and your website goes down, you need to get that information back up very quickly. So make sure you're aware in terms of your knowledge that you're aware of cybersecurity backup, how to recover from a disaster recovery, because for an airline that's going to be very important, right? If they're hit with a cyber attack, if there's an outage, they need to get it working again very quickly. Okay, so extracts from the website here, I think it pretty much repeats what we already know in the case. A couple of things here on the values. When we talk about values, we talk about culture. So we talk about culture and values. So culture, not been asked for a long time in the examination, asked a question on culture for a long time. But culture may involve culture web. We've not got a lot of data, but they've got some things here. They may be giving you more data in the exam. Also, potentially integrated reporting. We've got natural capital. We've got putting people. We've got customers. We've got safety. There may be something in there about demonstrating to the customers and to our shareholders about effective integrated reporting. Cortez, we've got profits, right? So we've got quite good revenues, we've got good profits, solid profit growth. RSE went down. I just was thinking the profits have been going up, but RSE has gone down. Is it because they invested in capital, right? So increased capital. Punctuality is impacted by external factors. Very strong in terms of customer satisfaction. And in terms of the costs, there is 47% of your costs are fuel and your ground handling fees. So very important that you manage these costs effectively in your organization. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the questions now. So that's it in terms of notes. I've got some more things to talk about, but just look at the questions. AI would reduce the need for staff. Yeah, absolutely. So Yinka said AI would reduce the need for staff. Yeah, so that's the ethical impact. So that's what they talked about on there's a mock exam for SBL under the new structure. It's on the practice platform, and that's exactly what they talked about, the ethical impact. So AI normally costs people's jobs. So when they're a company, when they talk about they care for their people, offering fair rewards and opportunities. If you bring in AI, potentially it might impact on those values. It might impact on those values. Would AI and big data work together? Potentially they could do. Potentially they could do. Yeah, technical articles. Is it important that there's only one independent non-executive director? Maybe. I mean, there may be something there, and we don't really know. None of the independent directors should all be independent. So it could be that these ones are not independent. There's a lack of oversight. We've not got much information about them. There might be something in there that they add in. If these are all not independent, it would be a weakness or lack of oversight in terms of corporate governance. Carol. For a listed entity, risk committee would be the best. Yes, it's best practice, but it's, in the UK code, it's not actually compulsory. It's the other ones are compulsory, but they're not in the UK code. Risk management reports to the CFO, chair of the audit committee. Neither may be any Ds. Is that an issue? Normally, the risk management committee, I think the reporting line is okay, because on the risk management committee, it doesn't have to be independent non-executive directors. It's normally a combination of executive and non-executive directors on the risk committee. So you've got like the internal view, and you've got an external view as well. Yeah. So I'm just going to go down. How would culture web be assessed or tested? Normally, when they've asked it before, and they haven't asked it for a long time, but it would be an analyze the culture question. Analyze the existing culture and how it might need to change. So analyze the culture. You'll be looking at the cultural web for your stories, for your symbols in the organization. We've not got an awful lot of information unless we get a lot on the day of the examination. There may be additional things there that might help you. It's not been that popular in the exam, culture questions, so that's something. Sandra, would you share this annotated copy of those? I'm going to put that on. I'm going to put it on YouTube, Sandra, if that's okay. So this is meeting being recorded. We can also watch later. Yes, Toko, it has been recorded. Hopefully, recording works. If it doesn't work, I will do a recording for you as well. I mean, I will just do a non-meeting version for you if there's a recording failure. Hopefully, the recording works. Okay, just a few things, right? So, if you go to martywindle.com, a lot of people saying I don't understand these things. If you go to my blog page, there are articles in relation to the budget airline industry. Okay, so there's an article on integrated reporting in budget airline industry. Right, it's not related to the case, but it's actually giving you industry knowledge and examples. So it's got specific examples of how integrated reporting would apply in the budget airline industry. There's also an article. Let me just stop sharing and I can try and share my screen. So let me just try and bring it up. Hold on. Sorry about that. It might lock me out. Yeah, sorry about that. Let me just share my screen again if I can. So on my blog, what I've got articles about big data, Pestel. I've got an article on Pestel. I've got an article on integrated reporting. I've got an article on 4 to 5 forces in the budget airline industry. I've got an article on risk in the budget airline industry. So you've got there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 articles to read. So they're all very kind of short articles. They're all very easy 5 minutes to read, but it might give you some benefit and some ideas about the industry. So the articles are not related to core jets, but it might give you some ideas, and it's all about, thank you, it's all about the industry analysis, right? And SBL is all about ideas, right? They'll say, what are ideas? I'm not going to share a list of articles because I want you to go to my blog page. So the article I'll just share here. So if you just go to my blog page, you'll see all the articles there. Yeah. So if you just type in martinwindle/blog, you will see all the articles there. So they're all there for you. Yeah. So I don't have one on AI, but let's see if I've got time, I will try to add something if I can. So keep an eye on it. Also, one thing about the first ACCA exam under a change of syllabus, one thing about the first ACCA exam is that they want it to be successful. So I'm not saying this is going to happen, right? And please, I don't know what's on the exam, but in previous times, because I've been teaching for a long time, actually about 30 years, I've been teaching these ACCA papers. Whenever there's been a change in the exam, the pilot papers have been very predicted. Some of the question in the pilot paper and the mock exam by ACCA was very similar to what came up in the actual examination, what came up in the actual exam. So what you should do is make sure you review the pilot paper. It's on the Education Hub. So if you go to your test reach, you will see the pilot papers are all on the test reach in the Education Hub. I also think you should really practice the Education Hub, get into the test reach and practice those exams. So there's a question on AI. There's a question about risk. So previously it's been very it's the mock paper. Yeah, it's the ACCA official mock paper. It's there on test reach. Yeah. So I would strongly advise you look at that, because previously, yeah, it's the pre-September mock. Yeah. Yeah. The answers are there. If you're on the test reach and you're looking for the answers, you've got to pretend to do the exam and finish, and then it will show you the answers. The answers can be found. They are there. But you've just got to finish the exam. Just write 0, just space, finish the exam, and it then will go to marking or grading, and it will show you the answers. It will show you the answers there. So, yeah. So have a look at that. Has anybody got any final questions for me? Well, thanks very much for attending. Hopefully the recording worked, and I will put it on YouTube. And please, if you've attended, good luck in your exam.